ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी नामिने नमः। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी विशेषण्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी गम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरि ओम तत्सत। हरे कृष्ण। Am I properly audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Now I can hear. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay. So now we are continuing our journey on the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Transcendental Knowledge, Jnana Yoga. So what we have discussed so far in the fourth chapter is how the Lord begins the fourth chapter by explaining to Arjun that this knowledge that I have summarily given to you about how one can become free from all karmic bondage while working in this world, which is essentially called yoga, that knowledge of yoga I had given long back to Surya Dev, and how through disciplic succession that knowledge came down. Arjuna, of course, was a bit perplexed, and he poses the question to Lord Krishna, saying that, please explain, O Krishna, you are like my cousin. How did you long back give this knowledge to Surya? Surya Dev is aparam janma. Long back he was born. How is it like this? And then Krishna reveals his divine identity to Arjun in this chapter. So when we speak about spiritual knowledge, we summarize this. Spiritual knowledge, Prabhupada defines very nicely. Prabhupada says spiritual knowledge means understanding God, the supreme truth, Ishvara, Jiva, the soul, Prakriti, material nature, and their interrelationship. So fundamental to knowledge is not just about understanding oneself as spiritual, but also understanding oneself as a part of a bigger, eternal, unlimited, infinite spiritual reality of which we all are part and parcel. That connection we must understand. We are in a world where we are surrounded by so many other living entities. We are in a world where we are surrounded by nature. And there is an ultimate reality. What is that connection? Understanding this triangle, Ishvara at the top and Jiva at one vertex and Prakriti at another vertex, and understanding their relationship is knowledge. So here Krishna, of course, in the second chapter, Krishna hinted at the soul, because he started by telling Arjuna, you're spiritual. Why are you talking about dead, dying? Do you not know that you are never going to die? Then Krishna also speaks a little bit about Prakriti. He contrasts body and soul. He says that, oh, this body will perish. This body is made of material elements. So he has hinted towards Prakriti. Even in the 3rd chapter, the Lord explains a little bit about Prakriti, about how at the beginning of time, the Lord creates this universe and the living entities are set forth into this universe, and he gives the Vedic scriptures and gives knowledge towards the beginning of the 3rd chapter. So there is some introduction of the idea of Prakriti, of the soul. But now when it comes to real knowledge, where is this Prakriti coming from? Where is this soul coming from? Is there an ultimate reality behind everything? Correct? Like in this world, what we see consciousness, which is soul, and we see Prakriti, which is gross and subtle matter. But where are both of these coming from? Nobody knows. Oh, it came from a big bang. But which bang produces, or organized, complex, highly evolved entities? Nobody can explain. All the bangs only produce destruction and chaos. But nobody seems to be able to know. So, of course, there are so many speculations there. But the scriptures reveal, the great souls reveal that behind both the living and the non-living, the soul and matter, there is an ultimate truth which is the source of both the soul and matter. And that is Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Controller. So Krishna is introducing himself here in the 4th chapter by distinguishing himself very clearly from all other living entities. And he takes Arjuna as an example and says, Arjuna, you and so many others have taken so many lives. Bahuni me veditani janmani taucha Arjuna tani aham vetta sarvani na tom vetta paranta. I know all the lifetimes that have appeared because Ajopi san navdayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. I do not take a material body like you all. I am the same unchangeable Lord in the same spiritual body. No matter what form I take and appear in this world, I am that one supreme absolute truth. I never forget everything. You forget because you change body. And you change body because of your karma. I am not influenced by any karma. And why I am not influenced by any karma? Arjuna, because I don't associate myself with the material energy with any desire to enjoy matter. Even though I am the Lord of matter, I have no propensity to enjoy matter. But because the living entities, the jiva, have a tendency to try to enjoy and lord it over matter, they get trapped in karma. But those who understand my divine nature, my divine birth, my divine appearance, and know how I am ever free from any influence of matter, by understanding that, they also become free from matter. And then Krishna explains why he comes to this world again and again. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I come to help all the living entities. I come to ensure that the proper spiritual system and religious system are established, because the whole purpose of material existence is to give the living entities, all of you, Arjun, a chance to understand me, to purify their own existence and achieve a qualitative existence like myself. An existence which is free from birth, old age, disease, death. An existence which is full of knowledge and full of bliss. So if that system becomes disturbed, I have to come and re-establish it. Otherwise, the whole purpose of material existence gets defeated. And that is why whenever I see that the equilibrium gets disturbed, I come again and again to re-establish it. And how do I re-establish it? I destroy the impious. I protect the pious, the devotees, the saintly people. And if dharma and the principles of dharma have become obscure, I come and re-establish them. And that's exactly what I'm doing, Arjun, now. I'm giving this knowledge of the Gita again. And people have taken benefit of this knowledge that I've given since time immemorial. And by following this process of yoga that I've just explained to you, Arjuna, so many people have become free from material existence. Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. Manmaya mam upashritah bahava jnana tapasa puta mad bhavam agataha. Many people became purified because they detached themselves from the tendency to enjoy matter, understanding that the attempt to enjoy matter is actually not a solution but a problem. Yes, correct. Let's say you love to go and eat hot pakoras in a shop uh, on in one street of old Delhi, let's say, for example. Yes, and you go there, but and you love that pakoda. It tastes so nice. It is hot and crunchy and so wonderful, especially with the sauce. But every time you eat it, when you come back home, within an hour or two, your stomach starts rumbling. Huh? And then you know what that means. Then until the next day, you are in deep trouble. You are doing frequent visits to the smallest room of your house. And next day, you can barely even eat breakfast. And this repeatedly happens 2 or 3 times. Whenever you have visited the shop and you have eaten the pakoda, this is your experience. Then how do you think? You like the pakoda very much. You enjoy it. But what is the calculation that you will make? You'll say, oh, for a little 10 minutes pleasure for that pakoda, because it is not prepared in a proper hygienic condition, because it has some contamination, every time I try to enjoy it, I end up suffering 100 times more than what I enjoyed. Yes. And then you determine, no, I am not going to go there again. I know I will enjoy for a short while, but I will suffer so much more. Yes. And that is how knowledge dawns. Knowledge of not eating the pakoda in the wrong place. Of course, we have nothing against pakoda. We can make nice pakoda and offer it to Krishna and eat. But the point is that sometimes we come to a realization that enjoying something results in more problem than enjoyment. And that is when we actually make the necessary effort to curb our tendency to enjoy using a higher knowledge, isn't it? Yes. Some people like to break the signal, but once they get a summon, after that they say, no, I must think twice. I had to pay 500 ringgit because I broke the signal, whatever that summon is. So sometimes for a little bit of excitement, enjoyment, we get suffering, which is much, much more. And then eventually we become intelligent. So when we are talking about Vitaraga, Bhaya, Krodha, what it means is those who have developed that knowledge, they realize that this kind of materialistic enjoyment is actually causing me more suffering than enjoyment. I want to enjoy, and that is why I'm trying to exploit matter. But rather than exploiting matter and giving me enjoyment, actually it is giving me so much more suffering. So that is the beginning of knowledge. So Krishna says that those who have come to this realization, they give up their attachment, and they become gradually free from fear and anger, and they take shelter of me because they understand that they were running in the wrong direction to try to be happy. They have to run in this direction, not in that direction. Man mana mam upashitah bahava jnana tapasa. Through knowledge and austerities, being purified, mad bhavam agataha, they attained love for me. And Krishna says, I'm still recapping what we have discussed earlier. It's important to understand this. Krishna says, ultimately, I am always there willing to give all blessings to everybody. But the problem is, People don't approach me. As people approach me, I reciprocate with them accordingly. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. If people come to me for materialistic things, yes, I'm not so happy. But if they are so attached to that only, then I facilitate that. Yes, of course, they have to go through the suffering. They have to still learn. So that is life. Life is the school of hard knocks. So there is a nice saying. In school, you go to the classroom first and learn your lesson, and then you give exam. But in the school of life, you are made to give the exam first, then you are made to see the result, and then you start studying. So you try to enjoy, you suffer, then you say, why I'm suffering? I was trying to enjoy. What was the problem? So life is an experiential school. And all rules in material existence are designed by the Lord in such a way so as to give us reactions, both good and bad, in such a way that every reaction indicates and guides us in the right direction. It is actually a lesson. So sometimes we say karma is a punishment. Actually, there is nothing like punishment. Everything is a feedback to us. You are going wrong. You are doing something wrong. You did like this. Now you experience this for yourself. How does it feel? Is this right? No. Then don't do it. So God is not cruel. If you bang your head on the wall and then you say, oh, it pains, is the wall at fault? So unfortunately, we are blind. That's why we have to go through the hard knocks. But if we learn the knowledge that the Lord is giving in the Gita, then we can actually save so much trouble, so much time by learning the lessons that the Lord has given. And we can shorten our, smoothen our learning curve and evolve faster spiritually. And Krishna also explains that directly approach me. Do not get distracted by materialistic attachments and approach the various devatas for materialistic benefits, because that will also not take you very far. Yes, you may get more, the results in this world more quickly, but the results will also disappear equally quickly, because material things come quickly and also go away quickly. But spiritual results, even though they may take a little longer to come, they last for eternity, because they are of the nature of the soul and not of the nature of matter. So Krishna then goes into a wonderful section where Krishna is trying to explain how understanding the spiritual knowledge about how Krishna himself is always unaffected by matter and always unaffected by karma. Even other living entities who understand this principle, the yogis who understand this principle, they also become free from karma. Evam gyatva kritam karma purvairapi mumukshubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvaihi purvataram kritam. 15th verse of 4th chapter. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental spiritual nature. What understanding? That Krishna is fully spiritual. Krishna never tries to enjoy matter, and that's why he's never entangled. And with this understanding, they perform their duty. Therefore, Krishna says you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Do not be like those who fail to learn their lessons even after repeatedly being punished. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Even after going through repeated birth, old age, disease, death, so many sufferings, still living entities refuse to learn. When Yudhishthir Maharaj was asked, this is a story in the Mahabharata, when the Yaksha asks various questions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. That's a beautiful story in the Mahabharata where all the Pandavas, they were killed when they drank the water from a lake which a Yaksha was protecting. And all the four Pandavas died. Only Yudhishthira was remaining. He was about to drink, and the Yaksha forbade him and said, "You will also die, but you have to answer my questions. If you answer all my questions correctly, I will not only spare you, but also revive all your brothers." So he asked many beautiful questions, and Yudhishthira Maharaj gave answers which were full of wonderful wisdom. One of the questions he asked is, "What is the most amazing thing in this world?" And what was the answer? Yudhishthira Maharaj gave a very beautiful answer. He didn't say Taj Mahal, the most amazing thing. Of course, there was no Taj Mahal that time. Huh? But whatever, he didn't say, he didn't talk about any feat, any thing of material beauty. He said a very beautiful thing. He said, "Ahani ahani bhutani gacchanti yamalayam. Sheshasthavaram icchanti. Ascharya param." Every day, day in, day out, all people in this world are seeing so many people dying and leaving their body. Gacchanti Yamalayam. They're going to the abode of Yama. Sheshasthavaram icchanti. But those who are still left behind, they think, no, but somehow this will not happen to me. At least not yet. They live as if they are not going to die. Sheshasthavaram icchanti. Kim ascharya ataparam. What can be a more amazing thing than this? Very beautiful. So if we reflect on this deeply enough, we'll realize that actually living entities are in so much ignorance. The example is given like a goat in a slaughterhouse. Sometimes in a slaughterhouse, goats are arranged in a queue, one after another, to be slaughtered. So one goat comes and her head is chopped off. But the other one who's standing behind, whose turn is going to come next, she's busy eating the leaves and the grass and the other things which are kept nearby. She's so oblivious to the fact that I am next. I haven't seen this. This is what the great souls have explained. So similarly, so many people are dying, so many people are going through so much suffering, but everybody is thinking, no. Somehow I will be an exception. I will manage to enjoy in this world. This birth, old age, disease, death is for everybody else, but I am super smart. Whether we actually say it or not, we are living in such a way that deep down somewhere we are feeling we will beat the system. Krishna is saying, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. This world is so much misery and very little happiness. But we think, no. I will make it the other way around. That was Hiranyakashipu's formula. Hiranyakashipu was trying hard to make everything ulta. And he was the most powerful being in the universe. Still he failed. That was his project, to make everything topsy-turvy in the material world. So Krishna starts explaining in the next few verses this whole process of how one should act in this world in such a way that one does not get entangled. So Krishna starts elaborating. And he starts by saying that, Arjun, this is a very deep science. It is not so easy to understand because what seems apparent, the reality is not like that. Correct? Just like we said, right? If you want to enjoy, we think, oh, I must enjoy, I must eat nicely, I must see beautiful things, I must hear. That seems so sensible and logical. Yes, I must do and I must acquire and I must succeed and I must enjoy. That sounds logical. But the reality of the inner self is actually quite different. That's why it's not so easy to understand. What appears to be the source of happiness is often the source of distress. And what appears to be a source of distress is often something which leads to eventual happiness. In another chapter, actually, not in this chapter, but in another chapter, Krishna explains happiness in Sattva Gun and happiness in Rajogun, happiness in Tamogun. So he says a very beautiful thing there. He says that sattvic happiness appears painful in the beginning, but it leads to good happiness in the end. Means initially it is difficult to do and there is some pain in it, but then the result is good. But those which are the nature of materialistic enjoyment, they seem to give wonderful immediate pleasure now. They actually end up giving much more misery later. Again, right? Initially, we want happiness, but initially I have to go through a little bit suffering. But then there is big happiness. On the other side, there is some temptation of some immediate pleasure, which is so shining, but eventually behind it, not very far away, is a lot more suffering. So Krishna says in 4.16, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayo api atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshami yadgyatva mokshase shubhat. Even the intelligent people are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Means what are those activities which create karma and what are those activities which don't create karma, or what is that which leads to not producing karma. Even intelligent people are confused. So Arjun, now listen to me, because I know the system. I have created this and I will now explain to you how this works. What are the rules which determine how karma is produced in this world and how it is possible to act in such a way so that no karma is produced. Yeah, correct? Because as long as we continue to perform activities which produce karma, then until we enjoy or suffer that karma, we will still have to continue taking bodies, isn't it? So Krishna is saying, I will explain to you how one can become liberated from this cycle. It is very important to understand. Karmano hi api bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmanah, akarmanascha bodhavyam, gahana karmano gatihi. Arjuna, there are 3 types of karma first, before I go into how to perform karma in such a way that one is not entangled. Before that, first you must be clear about 3 kinds of karma. Karma, vikarma and akarma. Karmano hi api bodhavyam. Understand what is karma. Bodhavyam cha vikarmana. Also understand what is vikarma. Akarmanascha bodhavyam. Also understand what is akarma. Gahana karmano gati. The way this whole karma thing works is very, very deep and mysterious. But Arjun, I'm going to make it very simple for you and explain to you. If you understand that point, everything else will become clear. So let us start first. What are the 3 types? Karma, vikarma and akarma. So what is karma? Karma in very simple words is performing good karma. Vikarma in very simple words is bad karma. And akarma in very simple words is performing karma or activities such that they give no karma, which means they don't produce any material karma, good or bad. Okay, very simple. I'm repeating. Karma means, in this context here, karma is referring to good karma. And Krishna defines good karma as that activity which is performed according to the laws of God within the framework of your duties. If you are aligned with the system, if you are not breaking the laws and you are working according to your dharma, according to your duties, then that is called karma. It will give you good result in some form or the other, physical, mental, some plane. It will give you a proper result. That is karma, good karma. And vikarma means not following one's dharma, or those activities which are forbidden, those activities which involve violence and harm to other living entities. All these are vikarma. What does vikarma give? Vikarma gives us sinful reactions. Vikarma equal to papa karma. And papa karma gives papa reactions. Which means it creates situation and circumstances in your life which lead to suffering. So karma produces results which give apparently at a material, bodily and sensual and mental level pleasant experiences, and papa, the phal, the fruit of those activities is unpleasant situation and unpleasant experiences. One is by following one's duties, one is by not following one's duties. But Arjuna, both. Definitely karma is better than vikarma, but Arjuna, both are a problem. Why? Because both result in karma, and karma means body. Body means birth, old age, disease, and death. That is why it is very important to introduce to you the third concept. Most people in this world only know karma and vikarma, papa and punya. They can just get trapped in that. Oh, this is pap, this is punya. You do punya, you don't do pap. But they are not realizing just pap and punya doesn't solve the problem. The Pandavas, they were such noble souls. Were they free from suffering? You tell me the name of one pious soul who was having a wonderful, smooth life without any trouble. No such person exists. Because that is the nature of the world. Punya just makes the experience relatively better. It doesn't eliminate suffering. This is very important to understand. Just like in jail, rather than sleeping on the floor, if you get a cloth or a mat to lay on the floor and then sleep on it, it's a little better, right? But it's still a prison. You are still in the prison. You are still trapped. You still can't leave your cell. You are still in the Durga prison, trapped by the material energy of the Lord Durga, who's trying to purify you by giving you the threefold experiences of Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik, and Adhyatmic miseries. That is her service on behalf of the Lord. So, good or bad, if you are in the prison, whether you are sleeping on a soft bed or you are sleeping on the floor, you are in the prison. Whether you have an iron handcuff or you have a golden handcuff, it's still a handcuff. You cannot say, see, I have golden one. You only have iron one. Like one prisoner comparing with the another. I got. But what is the result? Handcuff, doesn't matter gold or iron, you're still tied. So good and bad karma, Krishna is saying that actually everybody just gets so trapped in this duality itself. And duality means material world. Good, bad, honor, dishonor, papa, punya, victory, defeat, happiness, distress. Krishna says, don't remain trapped in this. If you want to be free from all suffering, you have to understand the third concept. Not just karma, not just vikarma, but akarma. Because Arjuna, I already explained to you, it is not possible to not do any work in this world. I already explained in third chapter, it is not possible, it is impossible. Each person is always going to act in some way. How to become totally idle? Even if you sit idly in one place, you're still breathing. You move also, you eat also, all this is also work. And all these activities also produce karma. So don't think that one can escape from karma by being inactive. So what exactly is the formula of akarma? Arjun, that is what I'm going to explain to you now. I'm going to explain to you now the secret of how to work but still not produce karma. That is what yoga is about. Akarmano, akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano. Understand inaction also, because that is very important. And then Krishna gives a very cryptic verse which essentially answers the question of what is akarma. This is the verse 4.18, very beautiful verse. Karmani akarma ya pashed akarmanischa karmayah sabuddhiman manusheshu sayuktah kritsna karma kret. Very sweet. Krishna is saying, one who has actually understood what is this akarma, he has actually come to the conclusion that buddhiman, sabuddhiman manusheshu, he is a person who has come to the conclusion where he understands that it is possible that one is active and not producing any karma. And at the same time, it is possible to be fully inactive but produce karma. Karmani akarma means performing karma, means activities, but not producing karma phal. At the same time, the exact opposite is also possible. Not performing any physical activity, but still producing karma. Akarmani cha karma yaha. So Arjuna, the point I'm trying to tell you is that production of karma is not about doing or not doing. It is not that external level. What I'm trying to tell you, Arjuna, is by giving this example that by even after doing, it is possible to not do. Not do means not produce material result. And it is possible to not do anything but produce karma. So please understand, the production of karma is not simply about the external performance of activity. It is a deeper science. He who understands this properly is actually intelligent. And he is the person who's united with me in yoga. He is in a spiritual position, because even though engaged in all kinds of activities, they are still free from all karmic reaction. And what is it that makes them always free from all karma, even though they are doing so many activities? The reason, Arjuna, is not about their doing or not doing, but the reason is because they perform those activities without a desire for materialistic enjoyment. Yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagni dagda karmanam tam ahuhu panditam buddhaha. Yasya sarve samarambhaha. Sarve samarambhaha means they do all kinds of activities which are allowed according to their guna, karma, their duties. They are engaged in all kinds of activities, but kama sankalpa varjitaha. They are not performing those activities impelled by a desire for materialistic enjoyment. Kama sankalpa. Kama means to enjoy, for themselves. Sankalpa, that I will enjoy. I'm doing this so I will enjoy this. I'll do this. I'm doing this so that I can enjoy like this. Kama sankalpa varjitaha. And how is it possible for them to give up that kama? Because sometimes it's so confusing for people. Oh, if I give up kama sankalpa, then why will I even act? So the answer Krishna gives in the next line. Jnanagdi dagda karmanam. Because the materialistic tendencies in their heart have been burned away by the fire of spiritual knowledge. Why the Kama Sankalpa is burning? The Kama Sankalpa is burning in the heart of most living entities because they are still thinking, I'll become happy if I enjoy in a materialistic way like this. I'll become happy if I enjoy in a materialistic way like this. But those who have developed spiritual knowledge, they come to the conclusion, no, 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 no. Remember that pakoda story? I ate, but I suffered. This is not the formula for happiness. Formula for happiness is not about enjoying the senses. The formula for happiness is to connect with my real inner nature. That knowledge, when it becomes firmly established, it burns away the materialistic desires. I don't want the pakoda anymore. At least not from that place. Huh? I don't want, because it causes me more suffering. That is knowledge. Very small children who are unable to think, for them, even if they suffer again and again and again, sometimes they'll go on doing this. But a person who is understanding and able to relate the cause and effect will eventually come to the wisdom of realizing, oh, this is actually causing me more trouble than happiness. So that helps a living entity eventually come to the conclusion of Kama Sankalpa Varjita. Eventually they come to the conclusion, this is not the way to happiness. Let me stop trying to enjoy in a materialistic way. Yes, I will still act because acting cannot be stopped. I still have to work because I have to maintain the body. I still have to do my duties. I have to take care of my body. I have to eat. I have to do my job. I have to do my duties. I have to take care of my family. But let me do everything with the right knowledge, in the right perspective, in such a way that rather than being trapped in the cycle of birth and death, I will free myself from all karma and achieve a state of eternal happiness. That is what Krishna is encouraging. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nityatrupto nirashrayah karmani abhipravruttopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Krishna further elaborates what he just mentioned. What happens when that knowledge comes? When a person understands the futility of material enjoyment, he gives up that kind of an attachment to materialistic enjoyment. He's satisfied in his spiritual realization. He performs activities, but he is not driven or impelled to perform activities with a desire for material gain. He still does everything. And he leaves the result to whatever comes his way. Whatever God gives him, based on whatever he's performing, he just happily accepts as the arrangement of nature and of God. He neither hankers for it, nor does he despise it. Nirashir yata chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan apnoti kurvam napnoti kilbisham. Such a person becomes free from all sins. Na apnoti kilbisham, is never affected by sins. Why? Nirashir yata chittatma. His mind is controlled. Control in what way? Control because it doesn't allow the mind to run after the whims and fancies of materialistic enjoyment. It just performs his activity. And all he's thinking is, yes, by arrangement of the Lord, whatever comes my way, I will accept. At the end of the day, as long as the body is working properly, I'm healthy and my basic needs are taken care of, everything is fine. All other things, if they come, I'm happy. If they don't come, I'm also not bothered. Shariram kevalam karma. Because if he doesn't work, then he cannot even maintain the body. So he does shariram kevalam, whatever is necessary to be done, he does, but he doesn't over endeavor for materialistic enjoyment. Because he knows that endeavor of that kind, rather than leading to happiness, actually leads to suffering. Yadrichalava santushto dvandvatito vimatsarah samah siddhau asiddhau cha kritvapi na nibadyate. Such a person is satisfied by gain which comes automatically based on higher arrangement. Comes fine. He's free from duality. He doesn't envy, he doesn't think, oh, he got so much, I didn't get. He just does his karma in the best way. And then he just leaves it. He's not too bothered because he knows that he can remain happy and satisfied in all situations, that he is not dependent on the external circumstances for his happiness. He tries to find happiness inside. That's why he's steady in success and failure. If success comes, he gratefully accepts it and humbly accepts it. He is never entangled because he remains steady in both situations. He knows that he has karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. He has a right to perform duty. The fruits come by higher arrangement, and there are so many factors. Sometimes even after doing activities perfectly, one doesn't get any fruit because the laws of karma are so complicated. And sometimes one doesn't do anything much but gets something big. So he knows that all these things happen by the various arrangements of material nature. That's why he's not envious. He doesn't think, oh, why he got so much, why that. He knows everything is going on by the perfect arrangement. And he's also convinced that it doesn't matter, because ultimately it is not the external situations which actually lead to happiness. Happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is achieved by a steady mind, which is undisturbed both in happiness and distress, in gain and loss, in victory and defeat, in honor and dishonor. That is the state of happiness. If a person becomes too excited by honor, what is the problem? There is nobody in this world who will always be honored. We are always excited by honor and respect. If there are 5 people who honor us, there will be 500 who don't. Have you seen one person in this world who is loved by all and appreciated by all? Never. If you become attached to the glorification, the more you become attached to the glorification, the more you will suffer when you are criticized. Yes. Even the greatest of people in this world are criticized. So many of them. They are there after they have gone. Is there any person who's not criticized? What to speak of ordinary people in this world? Even when the Lord himself incarnates in this world, so many people criticize him. Even he is not spared. Yes. Lord Ramchandra was criticized after being Maryada Purushottam. Who can be a better example of dharma than Lord Ram? Even he was criticized. Oh, you shouldn't have done like this. You didn't do this right. Within the Ramayana itself, the story of the washerman is there. Criticize Ram and criticizes Sita Devi and Lord Ramchandra. I am not like Ram, who will accept the wife who has stayed in the house of another person. Criticizes Sita Devi and Ramchandra like that. That is the nature of this world. We cannot stop this because we can have no control over what others say and think of us. But we can become immune to it by not being attached to either. If you become attached to the good, Because the good doesn't come alone, it is always accompanied by so many other. There's always the other side of the coin, right? That will also come. And when that comes, it will disturb us even more than the enjoyment. So that is the knowledge. That is why those who come to knowledge, they become free from duality. Dvandvatito. Samau siddhau asiddhau cha. And such people, kritva api na nibhadyate. They do not become bound because they don't try to enjoy in a materialistic way. Gata sangasya muktasya ज्ञानावस्थित चेतसः यज्ञाया चरतः कर्म समग्रम प्रविलीयते. Why they are never influenced by karma, Arjuna? Let me summarize again. It is because they are not attached to the gunas of material nature. Anybody who tries to enjoy in a material way is attached to enjoying it either one of the three gunas, sattva guna, rajoguna, or tamoguna. They're trying to derive some materialistic enjoyment. Even in sattva guna is also a material enjoyment. It's just that it is a bit better. It is golden handcuff. It is still handcuff. It is still bondage. And there is the silver handcuff, and then there is the cast iron handcuff. Sattvagun, rajogun, tamogun. Person who's intelligent is unattached to either three. He wants to be free from the handcuff. He's not attracted by the golden handcuff. Ah, looks so nice. Let me tie myself up because it is so glittering. They are situated properly in spiritual knowledge. Jnana avasthita chetasaha. They are wise. They are situated in proper spiritual knowledge. And because they always act from the platform of such a knowledge, such a realization in a very detached way, not trying to enjoy either sattva guna or rajoguna or tamoguna, but always being steady and detached and always being situated in the realization of their spiritual identity, that I am a part and parcel of Krishna and I'm a servant of Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. Krishna is the enjoyer. Krishna is the Lord. Krishna is the master. Krishna is the friend and well-wisher of everyone. And they work in that understanding. All the reactions to karma become eliminated. So that is the formula of being free from karma. So Krishna summarizes in 4.24 that formula through a very nice comparison. How to act spiritually. Very beautiful verse he says. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagnau brahmana hutam brahmaiva tena gantavya brahma karma samadhina. This is very beautifully. He compares the performance of karma to the performance of a yajna. What is done in a yajna? There is an offering, there is a fire, and there is a process of offering. Correct? There is the havi, there is the agni, and there is the arpana. And there is the offering, the part, hutam. Krishna says, if a living entity performs all his karmas like a yajna like this, by making sure that the living entity always sees the spiritual connection in everything, where the living entity is not impelled by the material gunas or desire for material enjoyment, then in that case, all aspects of the offering, the offerer, which is the living entity, the soul, the offering, the activity, the process of offering, and the fire. Fire, of course, is the recipient of the offering. The fire here is representing the Supreme Lord, everything becomes spiritual. Brahma means spiritual in nature. There is Brahma and there is Parabrahma. We are also of the nature of Brahma, which means we are also spiritual. And there is Parabrahma, the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Lord. But when we start performing our activities for the Supreme Lord without any desire for material enjoyment, what happens? Everything becomes spiritual in the process of the performance of that activity. We are spiritual, the Lord is spiritual. But by giving up materialistic desire to enjoy and by trying to work for the Lord, the process of that offering and the offering itself also becomes spiritual. They don't remain material. That's a very beautiful point. Brahmarpanam, Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhi. Everything becomes spiritual. Why it becomes spiritual? Actually, everything is spiritual. It becomes material or appears and gives a material result because we see things disconnected from the supreme reality. But when the living entity understands that actually everything in this world is coming from Krishna, belongs to Krishna, and should be used for the service of Krishna, in that situation, when a living entity interacts with the world and performs his activities for the service of the Lord, then automatically everything in the connection of that service becomes spiritual in nature. So ultimately, spirituality is about using everything for its right purpose. It is the purpose which makes something material or spiritual. Ultimately, everything belongs to the Lord. In that sense, everything is an extension of the Lord. In that sense, everything is spiritual. But when we see things disconnected from the Lord, when we see objects of this world as objects for my enjoyment, then we are in illusion. Then we see them as material. But when we become reawakened to this wisdom that Krishna has just explained, and then we start using everything in this world in the service of the Lord, then the essential spiritual nature of everything becomes apparent and activated. And in that situation, no material karma is produced. Brahma karma samadhina. All karma becomes spiritual because of complete absorption in spiritual consciousness. Very beautiful. What that means, that when a living entity performs karma or activities with full spiritual absorption, no material karma is produced. But when a living entity, although spiritual, because of ignorance, performs activities with a desire to enjoy selfishly, it produces karma. That is the basic point. This may be a little confusing. I'm trying to explain it in various ways, just like the Lord has explained very wonderfully. So hopefully it makes some sense. So I'm going to stop here. So Krishna summarizes this section actually very beautifully with this last verse. So we stopped at 4.24. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. It's a very, very beautiful, very sweet verse and very deep and profound verse. Okay, so Krishna essentially explains in this section that Krishna is ever free because he is ever detached, not desiring to enjoy, and others should also follow his example. Because actually there is no enjoyment in matter. Matter should be seen as the property of the Lord and should be used in his service. And that is why those who work in such knowledge, understanding the real enjoyer, proprietor, and controller of all existence, and they use everything in this world for the service of the Lord, they become free from all karma. Okay, thank you very much. I'm opening up the floor for any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Vikas, Hare Krishna.
So in that regards, right, for clarity purpose, all the things, which means our relationships, our responsibilities, the job we do, all these are considered material things as well.
No. So the what makes something material or spiritual is the motivation behind it. So Krishna says, whatever is your duty, like the various kinds of duties you mentioned, whether it's in the job, it's towards the family, it's towards society. If all duties are performed not in a selfish manner, but as a sense of duty and for the service of God, by understanding the spiritual connection of everything, then those activities do not lead to bondage. Those activities lead to elevation of the soul. So the key point is, it's not about, it is not that the duty or the activity is the cause of the problem. It is the selfishness which is driving the activity, which is causing the problem. It is the consciousness or motivation behind the activity which is causing the problem. And that is what Krishna is trying to emphasize to Arjuna again and again and again, because Arjuna is saying, no, why should I fight? If I fight, it will be a problem. Krishna says, no, the problem is not in the fighting. The problem is what is your motivation behind fighting. If you fight for the right reason, as a service to me, not for your own selfish reasons, for your own kingdom, then you will never be affected by any karma. That is the point.
Thank you,
Because,
Prabhuji.
yeah. So reflect on this. This is a very profound point. Yeah. So it is indeed possible to perform all our duties like this. And the secret of that is one has to first develop proper spiritual knowledge. When one develops proper spiritual knowledge, then it is possible to maintain that consciousness by which one can perform all activities, yet do it in a way which is aligned with our real spiritual nature. Not in a selfish materialistic way, but in a way that is liberating us from all bondage. So that happens, that state of consciousness gradually comes. Again, it's not a switch. It is not that after this Bhagavad Gita class, yes, I switch from channel selfish to channel selfless, like a click of a remote control. From now onwards, I'm selfless. Brahma, Brahma, Havir, Brahma. Everything is spiritual. It's not so easy because we are so deeply programmed with a selfish program. We even switch channel, we switch channel only for 2 seconds, we'll fall back to our original channel. So this is the process of cultivation. That is the process of sadhana. Sadhana is the process of reprogramming our consciousness, which is in illusion, to a program of knowledge. It is reprogramming our consciousness, which is currently divorced from reality, to become aligned with reality. Yes. What is the divorce right now? The divorce is that we think I am the body rather than understanding that I am an eternal soul. The divorce is that we think this whole world is for my enjoyment, where the reality is everything comes from the Lord and belongs to the Lord and is for His service. So as we get purified through the process of sadhana, by hearing Bhagavad, by hearing Gita, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, by serving the Lord, by eating Krishna Prasad, by worshipping the Lord, by rendering seva, through all these processes, when the heart becomes purified, gradually one reawakens his spiritual consciousness. And the more one reawakens one's spiritual consciousness, the more it becomes possible to live like this. Yes, it is not a flip. Sometimes we think, yes, I will now become. I used to get very frustrated when I would start reading when I just started reading the Bhagavad Gita 25 years ago, I would read all this. He says, now from now on, I'll be spiritual. But I realized only 20 seconds I could remain spiritual. After that, I fell back to the material program. That is called as Smashana Vairagya. You understand Smashana Vairagya? Smashana Vairagya means people, sometimes when they go to Smashan, the crematorium, that time they become very detached. Oh, somebody else has died. Go to the crematorium. They tell each other, life is so temporary. Everything is useless. We're all going to die. I was there in a crematorium, one of my close relatives, and I was watching some of my own relatives. I was very young that time, 10, 12 years old. I was already familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, at least the basic concepts. So I was reflecting, but I saw some of them talking to each other. And I was in a very amused way observing it, of course, very quietly. They were all my elders, so I didn't say anything to them. So they were saying like that, oh. But I realized as soon as they came out and they were on their way home, automatically, okay, now I have to do this, now I have to do that, then we have to do this. Now where to eat, now I have to shop this, I have to buy. So immediately all Vairagya gets left back in the crematorium only. Nothing comes back. The channel immediately flips back. Why? Because it's so strongly programmed through so many lifetimes. One has to cleanse that programming through the process of spiritual sadhana. Then gradually, the 10 seconds material and 10 seconds spiritual and 10 hours material will start changing to 1 minute spiritual and 10 hours material, and then gradually it will increase, and then eventually it will flip on the other side. So that's a journey. Why I'm telling this is, don't get immediately frustrated if you feel that you cannot change the channel. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't work. It is a cultivation. It's just like a person who has put on 20, 30 extra kilos of weight. He thinks that today I will work so hard in the gym that tomorrow I will be thin and I will wear the pant I wore 10 years ago. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. Yeah, one has to gradually get rid of all the unhealthy habits one has cultivated. It's a journey, but the journey is most rewarding and it gives ultimate eternal benefit. I'm talking about the spiritual journey. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna. He's saying, don't get tempted by cheap material allurements. They will come and go, come and go. Don't be attached to them. If you get attached to them, you will suffer even more. Walk on this path. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amrutam gamaya. Walk this path. This path is taking you towards eternal blissful life full of knowledge. And the other path only takes you to dukkhalayam ashashvatam, full of misery and repeated birth and death. So, yes, the answer is yes, all duties should be performed, but should be performed in the right consciousness. And how to develop the right consciousness and maintain the right consciousness, not just develop it for 5 seconds and then flip back, but to maintain that right consciousness throughout our waking and sleeping hours, so that all our activities are performed in that consciousness. That comes through cultivation. The spiritual word for cultivation is sadhana. That comes through spiritual, disciplined practice. Okay, so I hope that will help you. So yes, cultivate knowledge. Knowledge is the base, and along with knowledge, you must perform sadhana. Otherwise, it will not take us very far. Any other point?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. What is the meaning of the sloka Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya?
Asatoma Sadgamaya, literally it means don't go towards. Asat means temporary. Sat means that which is of the nature of eternality. So it is saying asato ma sadgama. Don't get attracted towards temporary things. Go towards the direction of that which is the nature of eternity, which means what? The soul, the Lord, Brahma. Don't go towards tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Don't go towards darkness. Darkness means ignorance. But go towards jyoti. Go towards the path of knowledge. Mrityorma amrutam gamaya. Because if you go towards asat, if you go towards tamas, essentially you are going towards mrityu. What does that mean? You are going to continue in the cycle of birth and death. So instead, go towards mrityorma amritam gamaya. Go towards that direction which takes you to eternal existence without birth and death. So it is telling us you are now going in the wrong direction. Flip and go in the right direction. Go towards the Lord, not away from the Lord. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other question? Okay. Nothing else. We'll stop here around 10:15. So thank you all very much. Hopefully you are able to follow. Slightly technical, but it's very important. So please make an effort to understand. If you don't understand, please feel free to ask me either now or later or one-on-one anyways. It's a very, very important concept. Okay. So thank you all very much. Tantra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada.